Hello everyone, hope you're all doing great and staying safe. I know you might be, you have little confusion concerning the coming lectures. Till the shutdown is over, we'll have all the lectures uploaded online. Today we'll start with a new political philosopher in the line of social contract theorists. And this political philosopher is John Locke. I hope this chapter will be interesting. And this chapter actually is chapter 13 in your textbook. Concerning John Locke is one of the most important figures of the social contract theorist, and actually his ideas were very influential and had a great impact on many revolutions, and is considered to be one of the founders of the liberal political thought. So let's start with John Locke. Actually, we'll be covering many points in regard to John Locke and his ideas. First, we should know that, like Hobbes, John Locke was born in England, and actually he had witnessed the same social and political environment that Hobbes was exposed to, but actually they had reached to a different theories concerning the state, and actually they reached also to two different theories concerning the relationship between the ruler and the ruled, and the terms of this relationship. Also, like Hobbes, John Locke was concerned with peace, unity, and stability, and how to achieve peace, unity, and stability. But as we said before, they reached to different theories in this regard. Also, like Hobbes, the individual and his interest was the focal point of attention for John Locke. He and Hobbes, they made the individual and the interest of the individual their focal point of attention and focal point of interest. But actually, they reached to different things in this regard. For Hobbes, he, as we said, yes, he made the individual and his interest and the utmost interest of individuals, according to Hobbes, was to achieve the security and to feel that they are secure in their life and their possessions. And he believed that this interest, it will be best served through the unlimited form of government or absolute form of government. However, if we'll move to John Locke and his ideas in this regard, he believed that the individual and the interests of the individuals will be best served through a limited form of government. And so, yes, they believed that both of them believed in the individuals and that the individual's interest must be served. But actually, one believed that this will be achieved through unlimited form of government or absolute government, and the second one, who's Locke, believed that this will be achieved through a limited form of government that is created by the people and that rests on the consent of the people. The best known of John Locke's books is the famous work known by the two treatises of government, and actually will focus to great extent on this work. The first treatise, John Locke, was concerned mainly with refuting the theory of divine right of the king and the explanation it provides concerning the origin of the state. In the second book, actually, he will this second treatise of the government. It's the more constructive work, and he will be concerned and will start speaking about the state of nature and about the reasons why the people had voluntarily taken the decisions to move from the state of nature to the state of the civil society, and why they established the civil society. Actually, in regard to John Locke, the starting point, like all other social contract theories, was the state of nature and the main features that were there in the state of nature. And he believed that there were two main features in the state of nature. The first feature is that the state of nature was a state of perfect perfect freedom, and the second feature is that the state of nature was a state of perfect equality. Actually, Hobbes adopted the same thing. He believed that the state of nature was the state of equality and was the state of freedom. And so apparently they appear as if they are adopting the same beliefs and the same convictions in this regard. However, also they differ. And as you will see, we're trying as much as we can to make a comparison between Hobbes and Locke. Hobbes believed that the state of nature was a state of freedom, in the sense that the human being in the state of nature, they were completely free, and they can use whatever means that will help them to achieve their interest. And actually, the main interest they were trying to achieve is to feel that they are secure in regard to their lives and in regard to their possessions. And so they were completely free to do whatever they want, to use whatever means to achieve this main interest, which is to feel that they are secure. And also he talked about the law of nature as we can remember from the last lecture. He talked about the law of nature, and he believed that the law of nature existed in the state of nature, and it was all good. And if the people were to abide by the law of nature, they were they might be able to achieve peace, stability, and unity. But actually, the people didn't abide by the law of nature. Despite that, they understand the law of nature, they comprehend it, because actually the people, they fear each other, they do not trust each other. And so if an individual can curb his desires to power and will start to limit himself or restrict himself with the law of nature, he cannot guarantee that others, human beings, will do the same. So he's putting himself in a dangerous situation. Turning to Locke, he believes that the state of nature is a state of a perfect freedom. But when he talked about freedom, he believed that the individuals, they are completely free in the state of nature, but they were this freedom was restricted by the law of nature. So he believed also in the existence of the law of nature, but he believed that the people actually will be restricted. They would be restrained by the law of nature and by the dictates of the law of nature. So this will be the restriction for their freedom. They were free, but within the context of the law of nature. Being free, according to Locke, meant a different thing when compared to the meaning of freedom concerning to Hobbes. He believed that the people in the state of nature, actually, they were free to do whatever they want, but within the limits imposed on them by the state of nature. Another thing that will focus on concerning the features of the state of nature in regards to Locke was that the state of nature, according to him, is a state of perfect equality. If we return back to Hobbes believed that it was a state of equality in the sense that the people, they were physically and mentally equal. They were equal in regard to their physical, mental, intellectual capabilities. But actually, if we move to John Locke, he didn't believe that the people, they were equal in their physical and their mental capabilities. But by equality, he means that the people, they have equal rights and equal authorities. No one has more rights or more authorities over the other. And so equality for him meant a completely different thing than Hobbes. And actually, this is very important to know the differences between Hobbes and Locke in this regard, and in their meaning of that the state of nature was a state of perfect equality and perfect freedom, because actually they ended to different conclusions and different theories in regard to the state. The presumptions of Hobbes concerning that the states were the people in the state of nature, they were equal physically and mentally, and that the state of nature, the people, they weren't restrained by the dictates of the law of nature. had actually led hopes to reach to an important conclusion that the state of nature, it was a state of war, and it was a war of all against all. It was a state of violence, it was a state of aggression, it was intolerable situation, and that the people, they need to move from the state of nature to the state of civil society in order to enjoy peace and stability, and to feel that they are secure in their lives. Because it's intolerable situation, they cannot bear anymore. But according to Locke, the state of nature wasn't a state of continuous war of all against all or continuous violence. He believed that the people in the state of nature, they weren't equal in their physical and their mental capabilities, and because the people, they abide by the state of nature laws, and they are restricted by the laws of the state of nature. So actually the people they will strive, yes, in regards to over the natural resources in the state of nature, but this won't lead to a bloodly conflict, or it won't lead to complete or continuous violence in a war of all against all. Like Hobbes, Locke didn't deny that men in the state of nature, they were selfish and they were self-seeking, but he looked at the positive side about selfishness, that the people, they will concentrate all the time on improving themselves. They will try, this selfishness will be a sort of incentive for the people, that the people will try to improve their life, to live a better life, and all the time they were seeking seeking a better life and to improve the quality of life they are enjoying. On the contrary to Hobbes also, who believed that the man in the state of nature, they were unsociable and they fear each other, they didn't depend on each other, they didn't cooperate. Locke reached to another different conclusion, or another different observations, that the people in the state of nature, they were sociable, and actually they are because they are sociable, and that's because they are seeking a better life, and because they aren't equal in regards to their physical and mental capabilities, and because they abide by the laws of the state of nature. So we're going to confirm another time that the state of nature wasn't a state of complete violence or complete war, and a continuous war of all against all, according to Locke. So it's not considered, according to Locke, to be an intolerable situation. The problem in the state of nature was the scarcity of the resources. So the people, they were strive concerning the resources, and this was an important problem, and that it will lead that the demand on the natural resources will be very high, and the supply will be low, and so here we're having a problem. But still, this problem won't lead to a continuous war of all against all, because actually the people, they are physically and mentally they are unequal, and they are restrained by the law of nature, and that they will use the reason, and they will reach to an important thing, that the state of nature, yes, it is. It isn't intolerable situation or intolerable state, but still, this state, it isn't a perfect ideal state. So, because it isn't a perfect ideal state, and the people, they are seeking all time to improve themselves and to reach a better life and to improve the quality of life, they will come to to find that there were three main deficiencies or three main problems within the state of nature, and these three main deficiencies will lead the people to reach the conclusion that we are in need to move from the state of nature to the state of civil society in order to enjoy a better life and in order to be able to deal with these three deficiencies or these three defects. And in order to talk about the three main deficiencies or the three main defects, we'll first talk about the deficiency that results out of the fact that the law of nature, it wasn't codified, it wasn't written down, or it wasn't settled. So the people, they were selfish, and the people, they have unequal physical and mental capabilities, and because of the fact that the law of nature wasn't codified and it wasn't written down, so the people, each one of them will try to have an interpretation, have his own interpretation in regards to the uncodified law of nature. And because they are unequal mentally, they will have different interpretations concerning the uncodified law of nature. Each one will have the interpretation that will best serve his own interest. If the people in the state of nature, they were enjoying equal mental capabilities, so there won't be a problem because they will reach to the same interpretation in regard to the state, the laws of the state of nature. So this is the first deficiency or the first problem, that the people will reach different interpretations concerning the uncodified law of nature. The second problem, which is considered to be also a very important defect in the state of nature, that in the state of nature there weren't impartial and unbiased judges, and this is considered to be a great problem, because when the disputes between the people will start to rise because they have different interpretations of the laws of nature, we do not have an impartial and unbiased judge to settle these disputes. So this is the second deficiency. The third deficiency, and also it's considered to be dangerous and one of the most important defects in the state of nature, that it lacks the existence of an agent of enforcement. There is no agent of enforcement to enforce the law of nature on people in the state of nature. Because the people, they were physically have different physical capabilities and they weren't equal physically, so the people, each one will try to impose his own understanding and his own interpretations for the law of nature on the other. And actually the strong people, those who have strong physical capabilities, they will be able to impose their own interpretations on the rest. And for Locke, this is considered to be completely unacceptable, because the people, as we said before, according to Locke, they are equal in regards to their rights and in regard to their authorities. No one have the right to impose his interpretations over the other. So the state of nature and these three deficiencies in the state of nature will drive Locke to say that the state of nature, it was a state of inconveniences. And now we are trying to take a step to be able to deal with these three inconveniences. So still, the state of nature wasn't intolerable state, but it was state of inconveniences according to Locke. So this was the main reason why the people will voluntarily decide to move from the state of nature to the state of civil society, in which they believe that they will enjoy a better life and will improve the quality of life they are enjoying, and they will be able to better enjoy their rights in that they were enjoying in the state of nature. According to Locke, they will decide that the best way to do this is through a contract, and this contract will establish the society, will establish the civil society. Actually, this contract, it won't establish the government, and this is an important point of comparison between Hobbes and Locke. As we have taken before, Hobbes believed that this contract, it is established the society and the government at the same point of time. But here, for Locke, the contract only established the civil society, the society in which the people they will enjoy a better life, and they would be able to better enjoy their natural rights that they were enjoying in the state of nature. Also, Locke believed that the people, they will surrender and give up the liberty of interpreting, judging, and enforcing the laws of nature, and they will surrender in order to establish a more safe and secure and stable life, and to better enjoy their natural rights. And especially, he talked about the natural right of property. However, he's sometimes many thinkers and many of those who had focused on Locke and Locke political thought believe that when he talked about the right of property, in many times he was talking about the right of property, the right to life, and the right of freedom. The three main natural rights the people they were enjoying in the state of nature. So actually, Locke didn't say to which or to what form of authority they will surrender these and will give up these liberties. But actually, when reading the second treatise of government, we'll soon discover that he believed that the people, they should surrender, actually surrender their rights and their freedoms in this regard. Their rights, they won't surrender their freedom, but they will surrender their rights to themselves. They will surrender to themselves. And actually, he believed that they will, the people, they are the sovereign. They are the source of sovereignty. According to Locke, there is nothing worse than submitting to an absolute unlimited government, and this was the case of Hobbes. This is the worst thing, and so he believes that the people they won't surrender to an unlimited absolute form of government, but they will surrender to themselves. And this will be through, they will be ruled and they will be governed according to the majority decisions. Also, according to Locke, he completely refused the idea of that the people will voluntarily trade their freedom for security. This is considered to be unacceptable, because for him there is nothing more precious than the individual freedom. So the individual and his freedom, there is nothing precious than this. And any situation, even if we're talking about the situation in the state of nature, it will be better than surrendering or giving up the freedom of the individuals to an absolute ruler. So to sum up this part, Locke believed that the people, they will form a contract, and by this contract they will establish the civil society and not the government. This contract will only establish the civil society, and he believed that the people, they have nothing more precious than their freedom, and there is nothing much more worse than giving up their freedom to an absolute ruler. And so he rejected the ideas of Hobbes in this regard, and he rejected the ideas of trading the freedom for security. Let's talk about the ideas of Locke in regards to how the people will establish the government, how the people, they will construct the government. As we said, that the people, they, by the use of the reason and by their natural and by being rational by nature, they will discover that they are in need to move from this inconvenient state, the state of nature, the state of inconveniences, to the state of civil society, in order to enjoy their natural rights and in order to improve over the three inconveniences that were there in the state of nature. But they will soon discover that they didn't, this society didn't deal with the three inconveniences that were found in the state of nature. And actually, they will discover that they are in need to build certain institutions. These institutions will help them to improve over the three inconveniences and the three deficiencies that existed in the state of nature. And they will discover that they are in need to take a second step, and this second step was to establish and construct the government and the different institutions of the government. So who will establish the government? Who will construct the government? It will be established by the people, and they will establish and construct the government by a legal device. And it is termed the trust arrangement. And according to this trust arrangement, they will choose the people, they will choose an agent to work for them and to serve the individual and the interest of the individuals. This trustee or this agent, actually, it will have certain obligations toward the party that constructed it, which is the people. So it will have certain obligations to the people. It will be responsible in front of the people. It will be accountable to the people, and actually Locke didn't want this agent to have to be equal to the people. He believed that it has obligations to the people and it's not equal to the people who actually constructed this agent. And he won't, the people actually, they will create this government through this legal device, actually Hobbes believed that the sovereigns also, the sovereign is not and shouldn't enjoy equal rights with the sovereign. The people and the sovereign shouldn't enjoy equal rights, but actually he didn't want the people to be equal to the sovereign in order to help the sovereign to enjoy an absolute authority and absolute power over the people, and to prevent the people from questioning the sovereign or giving them and prevent them from having any opportunity to remove the ruler, the absolute ruler or the absolute monarch from power. But moving to John Locke, we will find that he also didn't want the people to be in equal terms with the ruler, but he wanted the people to be more powerful than the ruler, and that the ruler to have certain obligations and duties that he should fulfill, and that he should serve the people. So the people, they are more powerful, they are the source of authority and their source of legitimacy and sovereignty for the government. So actually, they have different ideas in this regard. So, according to Locke, this government shouldn't rule based on the principle that it has certain right, and this right it's against the right of the people, but it should exercise its power under the principle that it has obligations that it has to fulfill towards the people. And it's an agent that works for the interest of the people, not for its own interest. It's working for the interest of the people and to help the people to enjoy, to better enjoy their natural rights. And Locke moved to a very important part in his political thought when he started to talk about the government and about the three main institutions of the government that will start to solve the problems and the deficiencies that had previously existed in the state of nature. Each institution will be constructed in order to solve one of these deficiencies. Let's return to the first deficiency or the first problem in the state of nature, which was that the state of nature there weren't codified set of laws or written laws of nature. The laws of nature, it wasn't codified, it wasn't written or settled. So we are in need to have an institution that will be concerned mainly with the lawmaking, with the process of lawmaking. Hence, the government must include a legislative authority, and this is the first authority that, and the first institution that should exist. The second problem in the state of nature is that the state of nature, it lacks the existence of impartial and unbiased judge to settle the disputes that will arise. And so the government that will be established through this legal device should have an executive authority. It must include an executive authority. And a judicial authority. Here we're talking about the problem of that we do not have impartial and unbiased judges in the state of nature. So we are in need that this new authority, this new government to have, to include a judicial authority. The third problem in or the third deficiency in the state of nature was that it lacks the existence of an agent of enforcement to enforce the laws over the people. And so this government must include an executive authority. So the government, according to Locke, must include three main institutions and three main authorities: the legislative authority, the judicial authority, and the executive authority. But let's ask an important question. Did Locke believe that all authorities, they are equal and that they are equal in power, or that there is a certain authority that has more power and more authority over the other, or enjoy a certain superiority over the other organization? And to understand this point and to answer this question, we should know that the legislative authority for John Locke was the most important authority in the civil government. He believed that it has a sort of superiority, it has more power, and actually the civil government was established by the people to serve their own interest, and according to John Locke, this authority, the authority of lawmaking, must reside with the people themselves. And in fact, he believed that the manner in which the process of lawmaking will take place determines the form of the government. And for him, and depending on the manner upon which the law will be determine the form of government, we have three forms of government. First, if the laws were made by only one individual, so we will have a monarchy. And second, if we will have a situation in which the law are being made by a few people, so we have an aristocratic form of government. And if the laws were made by the majority, so we'll have a democratic form of government. And for Locke, actually, the democratic form of government is the best form of government, because according to him, the democratic form of government, the law resides, and the law making resides with the people in the majority. And an important contributions for John Locke in this part was that he starts saying that despite the people, they have the right to make the law, but they will exercise this right, the right of making the law, through the representatives. And he will introduce an important notion and an important principle, which is the principle of representative democracy. Before John Locke, we had said that there was what's known by the direct democracy, and that's the people, they will exercising their powers in regards to lawmaking directly. But here Locke is providing us with a new notion and with a new principle, which is the representative democracy. And actually, this is considered to be one of the main contributions of John Locke. According to John Locke, the sovereign is the people. The people, they are the sovereign, and they are the source of sovereignty. But they will delegate their sovereignty to their representatives. These representatives, they will wear the robe of sovereignty that is actually owned by the people. So who owns the sovereignty? Who is the source of sovereignty? Who is the source of power? It's the people. Also, Locke had introduced a very important principle, which is the principle of the separation of power. And by the separation of power, he actually didn't mean that that there will be a sort of equal powers between the different authorities or different institutions of the government, because, as we said before, he believed that the different institutions and the different institutions of the government didn't enjoy an equal or won't enjoy an equal power or equal authorities, and that the legislative branch will enjoy more power and more authority over the executive branch, and that the legislative branch can question the executive branch. What's important in this regard is that by separation of power, he actually meant that the powers and the authorities, the legislative and executive powers and authorities, shouldn't be combined in one hand. This is completely rejected by John Locke, and he believed that this will lead to great abuse of power. So it's completely unacceptable, and so we are in need for a separation of power. That's the power, the legislative and executive power, not to be combined in one hand or in one authority. And also he believed, or to sum up this point, he believed that the legislative authority, that the democratic regime, it's the best form of government, and in the democratic regimes, the laws resides in the hand of the people, and actually, it resides in the hand of people in their majority, and he believed that the people, they will delegate their authority in regard to the lawmaking to the representatives, and these representatives, they will actually they will exercise this power on behalf of the people, and that's the sovereign is the people. The people, they are the sovereign. And the third point is that he believed in the separation of power, the principle of separation of power, and that the legislative and executive authorities shouldn't be combined in one hand, because this will lead to abuse of power. So, according to Locke, the people, they will choose the representatives, and the representatives actually will start to make the laws. And an important part here is that John Locke believed that the people, they aren't compelled to leave the to live the state of nature and to establish the civil society and to establish the civil government. But once they had agreed to move from the state of nature to the state of civil society and to establish the civil government, they have to accept that their lives will be run according to the majority decisions. And so he will turn to a very important and interesting part, and he will talk about a situation that might happen, that the representatives in the lawmaking process, they will make laws that will enslave or impoverish or destroy the people and the lives of the people. In this case, he believed that this is considered to be a case that is considered to be completely unacceptable, because by this the representatives will be violating the three natural rights the people had enjoyed in the state of nature. And this is considered to be completely unacceptable, because we had moved from the state of nature to the state of the civil society, and we had established the civil government in order that the people can better enjoy the natural rights that they had enjoyed in the state of nature. So if they are making laws that will enslave the people, so they will be violating the rights of freedom. And if they will be making law that will impoverish the people and will turn the people to be poor and impovering the people, so they will be violating the rights of property. And if they will be making law that will destruct the people and their lives, so they will be violating an important right, which is the right of life. And in this case, he believed that the people should step forward and retake the power from that they had delegated to the representatives, because this situation is considered to be completely unacceptable, and a situation that require the people to take a step and to remove the government and remove it from the power and retake the power that is delegated to the government, retake it again. And actually, by this part, we had covered the important and very interesting parts in the political thought of John Locke. We had covered his ideas about the state of nature and his ideas about the main features of the state of nature, and how, despite that he might apparently look like he has the same ideas about the features of the state of nature, like how they actually differ, how their beliefs differ. Actually, we had also talked about a very important point, considering the main problems that existed in the state of nature, or the inconveniences and the deficiencies that were there in the state of nature, and that had made Locke to say that the people, they had they took the decisions to move from the state of nature to the state of civil society. And we had talked actually about the three main deficiencies and the three main defects. And we had talked about the contract that the people will establish the civil society by. And this contract actually, it didn't establish the government, it only established the civil society. And the people, they, at the beginning, they believed that through this contract they will be able to improve over the deficiencies that existed in the state of nature, but actually they had discovered that they didn't improve over these three deficiencies, and that still they have to deal with these problems that existed in the state of nature. And by this point, they will discover that they are in need to construct the government, to establish certain institutions and to construct the government. And so we moved to an important point, which is the establishment of the government by the people through the legal device, which was termed the legal arrangements, or the trust arrangements. And actually, according to Locke, through this step and through the step of and through the step of building this agent, and through the trust arrangement, and choosing the agent that will actually help the people and serve their interests and help them to better enjoy their rights. He said that this agent shouldn't enjoy an equal rights with the people. It has to work according to the principle that it has an obligations that it has to fulfill toward the people. It's an agent that works for the people, and it's not working for itself. And then we had moved to an important point in regards to the three main authorities, and how he talked about the three main authorities that should exist, and how each of the three authorities will handle the problem or the deficiency, one of the problems and the deficiencies that were there in the state of nature. And then we'll move to his main contributions in regard to the representative democracy, and his second contribution in regard to the separation of power, or the Okay, let's move to the second part in regards to the political thought of John Locke. In the second part, we'll talk about important things in regard to John Locke and his theory concerning the state. John Locke will start actually to talk about the right of the sovereign, and because according to John Locke, the sovereign is the people, so he will start speaking about the rights of the people. And actually, he will be speaking about three main rights of the people. The first right is the right to revolt. The second right is the right to property. The third right is the right of freedom of belief. And this part actually, it's an important part in the ideas and in the thought of John Locke, and it has an impact over certain events that have taken place in history later on. First, let's talk about the right to revolt. Actually, and according to John Locke, this right, it resides, it's implicit in the trust arrangement itself. The people are going to choose the government. They are going to choose the agents that will govern them, and this agent has an obligations toward the people, and it has to serve the people and serve the interest of the people and help them to live a better life and to enjoy the rights they were enjoying in the state of nature. But once this government starts not to serve the interest of the people, or to fulfill the demands of the people, so the people, they have the right to remove this government from power. And perfectly speaking, they have to remove it by peaceful means. And here he will talk about the elections, that we should have elections that will be held regularly, for example, every 4 to maximum 6 years. And the government will be aware that if it's not serving the interests of the people and fulfilling the demands of the people and helping them to live a better life and to improve their life and to enjoy their natural rights, in the coming election the people, they won't vote for this government, and it will be out of position. Or out, and it will lose its power. So this is perfectly speaking to remove the government from power peacefully through elections. So let's sum up this part. Locke believed that the people have the right to remove the government or the agent it had chosen, because they are the one who chooses this government and at the very beginning, and they have to do this perfectly speaking peacefully through the process of elections. But if the people won't be able to use this track and they want to use another track, which is to use the violence against the government and to remove it from power through revolution, also the people can use this track, can use the second track. But here Locke will say that the people should be cautious in regard to using this track, the track of revolution, to remove the government by revolution. But actually he didn't make like Hobbes, who had denied the people the right to revolt. And even when he said that the people might have a right to revolt against the government when the government it's not serving their utmost interest and utmost good, which is to provide them with the sense of security and that they are secure in their lives. He actually Hobbes had put too many restrictions, and he had feared the people from taking such step, and he said that taking such step will destruct the government and will mean the return back to the state of nature, which is, according to Hobbes, was intolerable situation and was a state of war of all against all and state of continuous violence. Locke didn't make what Hobbes had made. Actually, he just said that the people should be cautious when they choose to use this track, because when determining to remove the government violently and once they decided to do this, they shouldn't hesitate in exercising this right and undertaking this action, because actually he believed that the troublesome party in this situation, it will be the government. So his advice to the people that once you had taken the decisions to use this the mean of revolutions to remove the government of power, do not hesitate to exercise this right and do not hesitate to undertake the required actions, because actually the government in this regard will be the troublesome party. According to Locke, when the government will betray the terms of the trust arrangement and will start to serve its own interest, not the interest of the people, so it will be the troublesome party. And actually, by this, it will be putting itself in a state of war against the people. And the people in this situation, they have the right to take a step forward and exercise the right to remove this agent, if not peacefully, then violently and by the revolution. And actually, he calmed down the people in regard to the use of this track. And he will say that this doesn't mean that they are destructing the whole society and that they will return back to the state of nature, which was a state of inconveniences. Because actually, if you can remember what we had said in the first part, that he believed that there is two separate ways through which the government and the society were constructed. The government was established through the trust arrangement, and the society was established through the contract. So removing the government from power won't mean that the society is being destructed or the return back to the state of nature. And even if, we'll say that even if the destruction of the government or removing the government from power will lead to some sort of instability and will lead to some sort of troubles which might lead to the destruction of the society, the reversion to the state of nature is not a very bad thing, because actually the state of nature, according to him, it was a state of inconveniences and it wasn't a state of intolerance. So the people, they are the sovereign, and they have to see if that they have to see and to confirm that they have the upper hand, and that the government is not equal to them. It has an obligation toward them, and they are the one that had chosen the government, and that they are the one that have the right to remove it, if not peacefully, then violently through the revolution. So this is in regard to the first right, the rights of the people to revolt, the right to revolt and the right to remove the government from power. The second right, actually, and it's an important right, it was the right to property. And actually, Locke, he believed, he's a great supporter for the right to private property, and he believed that the right to property, it was a natural right. It existed in the state of nature. And the people, they carried this right with them from the state of nature to the state of the civil society. And they carried it from the state of nature to the state of civil society in order to better enjoy this right. He insisted that this is a natural right that the people had enjoyed even before the existence of the government and before the existence of the civil society and the civil government. It's a right that wasn't created by the civil society or by the government. And by transforming this right from the state of nature to the state of the civil society, they are carrying this right from the state of nature to the state of the civil society. They transfer it from just being a natural right to be a natural and a legal right. Also, an important part in this regard is that he said that actually the right to private property, which is a natural right, it is a limited right. It wasn't unlimited even in the state of nature. And even in the state of nature, where the people, they were good and rational, and they abide by the law of nature, the natural right to a private property wasn't unlimited. It was limited because it was the people who abided by the law of nature. We said before that they will free, but within the context of the law of nature or the dictates of the law of nature. So actually, they enjoyed this right, but this right was limited by the law of nature. And actually, we have two most important rules in the law of nature that put certain limitation in regard to the right to property. The first rule is that the individual shouldn't accumulate more goods than his ability to consume. Because this will raise the risk of that these goods, they might get spoiled. So the people who are good, who are rational, who are sociable by the nature, they are they have to abide by this regulation in the state of nature. They shouldn't accumulate more goods than their ability to consume. The second rule, which is considered also to be very important, says that the people, they shouldn't acquire more land than their ability and the ability of their families to cultivate. And this is considered to be the second limitations in regards to the right to property. Actually, this part and the part of the right of property, it's very important, and he insisted on 2 points in regard to the right to private property. That the right to private property, it wasn't created by the civil government and the civil society. It existed before the civil society and the civil government, and it existed in the state of nature. The second thing he will emphasize that the people, even in the state of nature, they had this right, the right to private property, it was limited, and it was limited by the laws of nature and by mainly the 2 important rules that we had mentioned before. He believed that the government has to protect the property that had been legitimately accumulated, and it has to prevent also using it against the interests of the people or against the public interest. So he will say that actually the government, when it will take step forward in regards to the right to private property, it's not violating this natural right, but actually it's regulating this right. So it's not violating the natural right. This right, it exists, and it's not violating, the government is not violating this right, but it's just regulating this right. And he will state a very important and interesting thing, that the right of the government to regulate this natural right to private property doesn't mean that it has the right to impose sort of equalization in regards to property ownership. So John Locke didn't believe in equalization of property ownership. And for him, this is not the case, or this is not the form of regulation he is talking about or he is seeking. And that's because simply the people, they differ in regard to their bodily and intellectual capabilities. Some people, they are more industrious than the others. Some people are capable of accumulating a greater amount of property. So he is not calling for equalization of property ownership by the government. The government just will interfere to regulate this right, and actually the people, they differ in regard to their capabilities to accumulate the property. Some, they have more, they are more capable of accumulating a greater amount of property, and some are more industrious than the other. But actually, according to Locke, the people and the intelligent people, they were able, in regard to or under the civil governments, they were able actually to circumnate it. The limits that were in regards to circumvented the limitation that was in regards to the private property that existed in the state of nature, and actually this through the invention of money, as money helped the people to accumulate more property without the risk of spoilage. and this was the risk he was talking about when he talked about the first rule in regards to the laws of nature in concerning property, that the people, they shouldn't accumulate more goods than their ability to consume, because this will mean that the goods will be spoiled. So actually the people, they circumvented these limitations, and they were able to accumulate more goods and to accumulate more property under the civil government and under the civil society through the invention of money. Okay, so here we had tackled two important rights to the people in the ideas of John Locke. The first right was the right to remove the government when it's not serving the people's interests and fulfilling their demands. The second right is the right to private property. The third right is the right of freedom to believe. And actually, this is a very important part in the ideas of and the thoughts of John Locke. John Locke, actually, he was calling for religious tolerance. And he believed that the people, they created the civil government in order to protect civil rights. And they didn't establish the government, the civil government, to impose a certain religious belief. Hence, according to him, the civil government shouldn't interfere in the way the people believe, in the religious belief. This is a private matter. It's a religious and private matter that the government, the civil government, shouldn't interfere in this regard. The religious institutions, according to him, are voluntary institutions that should be devoted for the salvation of the soul, and the people, they have the freedom to choose whether to join the religious institutions or not, and this religious institution shouldn't resort to the civil institutions or to the civil government in order to support it, for example, to increase the number or to broaden its membership, or to impose certain religious beliefs or convictions on the people, or to punish the people for certain religious beliefs or certain religious actions. Actually, the civil institutions, according to him, it's constructed by the people in order to enjoy a peaceful, stable life. And once this civil government starts compelling a certain set of religious beliefs or religious convictions, the strife and the conflict will start to arise within the society, and this is actually a very dangerous situation. And so the civil government has to be neutral in this regard, has to be neutral, and it shouldn't interfere in regards to the this domain. It's not allowed to interfere in this domain. Also, he believed that if a certain member in the civil authority, he belonged to the church, he shouldn't this shouldn't enhance the power of church, because actually inside the church he is like any other member inside the church, and actually he can't carry his civil authority inside the church organization. And this is considered to be a second important part he talked about when talking about the religious institutions and the relationship between the religious institution and the civil institution. He believed also that the religious institutions, it has the worldly mission, and according to Locke, they have the right to punish the people for maybe some wrong religious actions or behaviors. And the worst punishment is the excommunication, which means that the church to decide that this person is not a member of the church anymore. But the church can do this, but this shouldn't have any civil consequences. This shouldn't lead to any civil consequences. This is considered to be also a very important part to understand. And here Locke said that the religious institution, it has the right to punish the people for certain religious actions, and it has the right even for excommunication. And by excommunication, he meant that it has the right to declare and to decide that this member, he is not a member of the church anymore. But this shouldn't lead to any consequences, civil consequences. According to Locke, the formula that should exist is that we have one state, various religion, and that this religious diversity shouldn't destroy the community of the state. And in order for this formula of one state, various religions, not to lead to religious wars or to strifes and the conflicts within the society, the government should be actually neutral, and that the government should actually adopt secularism and shouldn't interfere in regards to a religion which is a private matter that has nothing to do with the public sphere. And actually, he believed that the church authority also may not forbid some acts which is considered to be a lawful act by the civil, lawful act by in the civil life. And here, actually, we'll find that this part is focusing, in this part Locke is focusing on three very important rights for the people, and actually the ideas of Locke and his political thought actually had affected many revolutionaries in the 18th and the 19th century, and actually he had an impact over the American Revolution, and he had a great influence over the founding father of the United States and the way the American Constitution was set. By the end of this lecture, I want to thank you, and I want to tell you that you shouldn't hesitate to return back to Dr. Rami. You have his email, and you can contact him directly if you have any problems or have any questions. And I'm in continuous contact with Dr. Rami to know your questions and if you're having any problem. And thank you very much, and good luck, and stay safe.